What's up? It's Truth Hero, and welcome back to me, because I haven't looked at Deku and Squad in a minute. So much has happened since I've touched this series. We have Aoyama confirmed to be the traitor, and his family beholden to All for One. There's the coffin in the sky to contain and defeat Shigaraki. Dabi vs Shoto, the Brotherhood showdown we've all been waiting for. Shinso can apparently make people talk now, and if that wasn't enough, this is what I believe to be the last arc in My Hero Academia. Buckle up. And there's so much more beyond that as well, so let's dive in and talk about everything that I've missed and the future of this great story by Horikoshi. Aoyama being the traitor here makes a lot of sense, especially given his unstable quirk, and I'm glad that Horikoshi went in this direction. And yes, I admit it, I was wrong. I'm sorry, Aoyama was not the bait, and Kirishima was not the traitor. Just roast me down below in the comments, okay? You guys deserve it. I've been away for a while, so give me your worst. I really love this deal with the devil angle Horikoshi took with Aoyama's parents because it makes this situation a bit more desperate. They're not purely evil, you know, they had good intentions, and of course Aoyama's not evil like, you know, just 100% because he was born into this unfortunate situation. It is of course the classic fairy tale of, you know, I'll give you fame and fortune in the present, but eventually, you know, you'll have to return to the Swamp King or the devil, and your firstborn child is mine. Now, of course, we can all say that they should have never taken this deal, but what's interesting about them doing this, and perhaps it's because his family's from, you know, a higher standing or a bit of a high society, and, you know, they need to keep up appearances, but it goes to show the extreme prejudice in the society of My Hero Academia towards people without quirks. They felt so desperate and they wanted to make sure that their son wasn't made fun of or bullied or excluded from anything in life that they would turn to, you know, the worst villain of all time just so he wouldn't have a stigma about him. You know, this could have been Deku's parents turning to All for One if they had the means. Then again, it probably wouldn't have worked on Deku because he's too trusting in the first place. He'd find some way to blow it. And honestly, he's ready to just 100% forgive Aoyama here. I think he needs to take the advice of the police and slow down. But I am on his and Class 1A's side. I love that Aoyama has a chance to redeem himself, and perhaps his family can participate in that redemption as well. I really love how Aoyama uses his natural twinkle and pizzazz to lure All for One into one of the best performances of the year. It's even more amazing that Shinso brainwashes Aoyama's parents and makes them talk so that All for One doesn't sense a bit of danger. We'll get to this in a bit. I also love that Aizawa is still behind Aoyama 100%. Of course, he doesn't agree with everything that's happened, but he says, hey, you're still my student, and I still expect you to do good. And really what he's saying is, I still expect you to be a hero. So I don't know if Aoyama's going to get expelled after this. I don't know if there's going to be the concept of school after this. Let's focus on saving the world first. But I do think Aoyama can turn the corner, and hopefully his parents can as well. The last real interesting thing about Aoyama and his folks here are that besides their direct communication with All for One, they knew nothing about him, not location, nothing, and of course that's because All for One could have told if they had any malice intent with that quirk he has, but I mean, they couldn't even go to a hero and say, hey, we just spoke to All for One, he was on the phone here, because they didn't know. I do wonder if they could have told the heroes anything, that they were in contact with him and set up a plan, but maybe All for One's quirk would have fleshed that out. But let me know what you guys think. Could Aoyama's parents, I mean, yeah, they could have done better, right? But could they have done anything to help the heroes with All for One? Especially, you know, when he resurfaced against All Might in Kamino. Okay, let's talk about Shinso, arguably one of my favorite characters. The fact that he can now brainwash people and make them talk is arguably one of the greatest quirk evolutions and sort of level ups we've gotten in the entire series. Of course, he uses this ability to brainwash Aoyama's parents when they're on the phone with All For One, so that they're basically sort of talking puppets, and All For One's quirk that senses malice, intent, or deception can't pick this up. I mean, just brilliant. It looks to be that Shinso has to be in close proximity in order to do this, and has to concentrate an awful lot. I actually hope that Horikoshi can expand upon Shinso's training somewhere in this great battle arc, because this was kind of just thrown in there as part of his secret training with and without Aizawa, and I want specifics and details. This new talent will undoubtedly make Shinso a better hero, and I think it's something that we've all wanted to see from him since the start of the series, since he even got the opportunity to take an exam to join Class 1A and Class 1B and pursue being a real hero. My question is, outside of a controlled environment like Aoyama's parents going along with him and doing what he says, to repent for their sins, basically, how can Shinso use this in a chaotic environment? Can he walk up to Shigaraki and have him say a bunch of things? It's too bad Star and Stripe isn't around anymore, because he could have brainwashed her and then made her use her quirk. Maybe. That'd be interesting. I look forward to seeing Shinso grow, because you know me, I'm all about that rich, sweet character development, and a lot of things have happened since I've been away from My Hero Academia, but some things never change in the manga, like Hatsume Mei putting those big, bouncy, bodacious brains to use on Deku and his classmates to help them improve their support items. I mean, who doesn't like seeing Hatsume Mei and her babies? Her inventions. She's gotta help the hero course, guys. Come on. The whole coffin in the sky plan for Shigaraki and splitting the villains up to divide and conquer them is honestly an ingenious move. I really like how thought out this is, with heroes like Cementos and I think his name's Power Loader or Lifter repairing the panels, and how these sections move to counteract Shigaraki and his damaging quirks. However, that being said, it really does seem to me like Horikoshi is saying either the heroes are victorious here, or the villains win and take over the world, because it really comes down to how many second chances are the heroes and Hero Society going to have to stop All For One, Shigaraki, the League of Villains, and the Paranormal Liberation Army of bad guys. We've had All Might vs. All For One about 7 years ago, then he faced him at Kamino, then we had Everyone vs. Shigaraki at Jaku Hospital, and other heroes fighting the Paranormal Liberation Front Army, and we've had mild run-ins with, Class 1A, with some of the villains when they weren't really formed yet, like the training camp arc. But, I mean, this has gotta be it. Heroes are quitting, people around the world see Japan as a lost cause, and it kind of is. So, if the heroes were to lose here, I don't see how they could come back from that. This is it. This is their time to win, Shigaraki might not even be fully complete. Deku is not mastered all of his quirks yet, but now's the time, and I think it might be very long, but this is the final arc of My Hero Academia. The good news is it will probably be a very, very long arc, maybe even one with multiple parts, because we have a lot of loose ends to tie up. In addition to Deku defeating Shigaraki, hopefully, and All For One, there's also the drama between Shoto and Dabi and Endeavor. Then there's heroes like Toga vs. Uraraka and fleshing out their backstories even further, and all of this will probably be juxtaposed to Deku fighting Shigaraki and All For One. I love the fact that Monoma was taking a leading role here in the battle against Shigaraki. I think it's pretty cool that he gets to copy Aizawa's quirk, since Aizawa is missing an eye and can't really do it himself, and he also gets to copy Kurogiri and Shirakumo, maybe, their quirk in warping all the heroes into the coffin in the sky. So he plays a huge role in setting this plan up and putting it into action. I mean, you want to talk about character development, Monoma went from being the Class 1A sort of antagonist to being the guy to tie everything together, warp the heroes into this final stage, and he's currently the one looking at Shigaraki, making sure that he doesn't decay anything. I mean, You've made it, buddy. You've made it. And I have stood by this. I am somewhere on YouTube on record saying, I think it's Jonen's channel, I said that Monoma would play a huge role by the time the story of My Hero Academia resolves. And I'm right. I was right. About something, at least. That's not to say that this is a walk in the park. Since Monoma can only copy one quirk at a time, he's currently staring at Shigaraki and cannot break eye contact. Therefore, he cannot warp Deku back to where he's supposed to be. Unfortunately, Deku was separated. We'll talk about him and Toga and Uraraka in a bit. But even with Monoma copying Aizawa's quirk perfectly, Shigaraki is still extending these hands out. He's still growing. What does this mean? Has Shigaraki evolved to a new form of human? I mean, this is way past a recovery quirk. He can't use quirks right now. What is going on? This is going to be something that I want Shigaraki to explain in detail, just like Shinso's training. I don't want it to be because he's the baddest villain and he can do whatever he wants. I really want specifics on how Shigaraki's DNA and body has changed like this. Hang in there, Monoma. Being the lead star, it's hard. Toga hurts people, or at least Deku, out of genuine affection, to the point where Deku's danger sense quirk can't even perceive this. What is happening right now? This is perhaps one of the wildest developments in My Hero Academia. Someone's psychology has trumped a quirk. Actually, this is, leading into Dabi and maybe even what we've seen with Shinso, right? Shinso's quirk in making Aoyama's parents sort of null or just kind of void trumped All For One's sort of danger sense quirk that he has. But I really like that Uraraka is going to be the one to take on Toga as Deku zips back to the main battle. This to me was almost sort of a Deku so oblivious he can't tell that Toga has affection for him and he can't perceive that, a girl might want to hurt him, whereas Uraraka, she's a girl, she knows what's going on, she's not going to let Toga hurt her man. I look forward to this battle, and hopefully we get to see Toga's full backstory. We keep hinting at this, and of course Uraraka, maybe she can have some character development as well. It seems like there's been tension between these two, some sympathy on Uraraka's part, so we'll see how it plays out. The only other thing I'll say about Toga and her unique disposition here is that I wonder if there's any heroes that could have some disposition that would make them immune or able to bypass a quirk. We saw this with Shinso's quirk doing it, but I wonder if someone's psychology is just different, that All For One or someone that could sense things wouldn't be able to perceive it. I don't think it really matters much since All For One and Shigaraki, they're all powerful basically and they'll just attack head on, but it is something to think about. I love that we got to see the true story, or at least a glimpse at how Touya Todoroki fully became Dabi. I mean, he went to see his father, trying to make Endeavor accept him and validate him, and then he burned up, and he was asleep for a number of years at some facility run by All For One. And ultimately, it was Touya Todoroki's twisted love and affection and basically his need for approval from Endeavor that stopped him from being the successor to All For one of the possible candidates to be the next Demon Lord. He could have been Shigaraki here. That's really interesting. Of course, his body is still, flaking away. But this is amazing that, again, another psychological condition has made someone immune to All For One or a hero's quirk, or a villain's quirk, I should say. What's even more amazing is that All For One had multiple seeds, or really children, that could have succeeded him in case Shigaraki didn't work out. One of which, for a period of time, was Touya Todoroki in this facility until he ran away because he was still chasing Endeavor's love. I do really like how All For One, from the beginning, has targeted kids that are related to heroes. So, of course, Shigaraki being the grandson of Nana, and now we know that Touya Todoroki was on All For One's map. Who are the other kids there? Again, really interesting here. I hope Horikoshi expands upon these sort of psychological shifts that we've had with villains and how they can sort of bypass people's quirks. Of course, Shinso, he's kind of a different story, but I would love if Horikoshi took a few chapters to do that, and hey, this should be a long arc. Lastly, and probably most importantly, in the latest chapter, Shoto has engaged Dabi in, the battle we all want to see, and we really learned Dabi's plan. He couldn't win Endeavor's affection, and he doesn't really care about Shoto or anyone else in his family, so now his main objective isn't even what Shigaraki wants. It's not what Toga or Spinner want, to build a world where they can live in. He just wants to burn it all to the ground before he burns to the ground, and he wants to punish Endeavor for never acknowledging him as a son. So, a true villain that is just consumed by their rage and resentment. Simple, to the point, and well, good luck, Shoto. But let me know what you think down below in the comments. What event has stood out to you the most? Was there anything I missed? And what character and backstory do you want to see more of as we move forward with the story? And of course, gotta ask, is this the very last arc in My Hero Academia? I secretly hope not. Let me know down below in the comments, and it's good to be back, guys. Until next time, Plus Ultra.